Okay, good evening. I would like to call to order the January 24, 2022 Lake Washington School Board Study Session. Let the record reflect that all board members are present and participating remotely. Under Proclamation 20-28.15 of the Open Public Meetings Act and the Public Records Act, the prohibition on in-person public meetings is extended, but there's an exception for public meetings that can comply with the guidelines for business meetings found in miscellaneous venues guidance. The board values public participation and engagement in the meetings of the board, and we will continue to comply with the laws related to the Open Public Meetings Act and emergency requirements related to miscellaneous venues. If that guidance and requirements cannot be met, the board must hold its meetings remotely. And due to recent non-compliance at board meetings, the board has determined, at this point, it's prior non-compliance at board meetings, the board has determined to hold its meetings remotely. The board will notify the public of the location of its meetings through the meetings tab on board docs. At this time, it's planned that all board meetings scheduled in January and February will be held remotely unless there are changes in the guidance provided. Board meetings, study sessions, and special board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the district's website. If you're unable to live stream the meeting, you may call to listen, and that phone number is 425-936-2813, conference ID 37127. We have two items on the agenda for the study session tonight. The first is a review of the assessment tools, FastBridge and Panorama. And it looks like we have a lot of people here to present tonight. Dr. Holman, can you kick us off, please?
Yeah, thank you. So as Dr. Holman mentioned, in 2020, we transitioned to a new literacy assessment to replace what we used to have, which was called DIBELS, and then also adopted a math assessment at the same time. And there were a number of reasons for that. One of the primary drivers was that the DIBELS platform was changing, and so that was going to require a transition. More importantly, though, we had not had a district-wide math assessment. We had some district-developed assessments that were used at a classroom level, but a kind of a consistent across-the-board assessment we didn't have for math. In addition, we also looked at moving up the grade spans that we could use assessment tools with, so that we could not only assess students in the elementary level, but also could look at literacy and math at secondary. And so there was a real opportunity at that point to evaluate the DIBELS program that we had, but also other assessment tools. And just as a quick set, and then I'm going to turn it over to our directors. As you all know, you really, when you're thinking about learning for students, you're thinking about the quality of the instruction, you're thinking about the curriculum, and you're thinking about the assessment. All those really are blended together. And so our assessment tools take place in classrooms. Teachers develop those as they're working with students individually and use the curriculum embedded assessments. But there's also value in having an assessment that we can use across all of our schools that's consistently applied, because as you know, that provides information to us about the quality of our instruction, the way that we're delivering instruction to students, the interventions and supports that we provide to our students. It allows us to think about across our district professional learning that might be needed, or additional programs and supports that might be needed. So that district-wide assessment really is so important to us. And so we are very intentional about evaluating different assessment tools that would give us information to make those kinds of decisions. We also know that as we made that transition, you as board members received a number of questions from our community, and then you also had questions that you've had over the past year or so. And so tonight, the intent is to share information with you to let you know about a little bit more about the programs themselves, but how they were adopted and how we're using them. So I'll do a quick, let me get the slides up here, and then just walk you through what we'll share tonight. And then following this presentation, as Dr. Holman mentioned, we will move into Panorama. So can everyone see that okay? So So tonight, what we're going to be spending some time on, we'll have three of our directors here who were responsible not only for evaluating the different assessment tools, but also really we use the assessment results in their areas and their departments. So Dr. Jen Rose will be here tonight to talk about the teaching and learning department that she oversees and the implications for teaching and learning across the district. Becky Cattermas, our director of accelerated programs, will talk about how they're using that the FastBridge program to inform their program. And then finally, Kelly Pease, our Director of Intervention Services and Literacy, will also talk about how we use FastBridge. Oops, and I jumped ahead a little bit. Looks like it was on a timer. So as I mentioned, we'll talk about what the screeners are, how we're using them, and then how they were selected. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, I believe. Oh, Kelly, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I said amazing things in the couple of seconds you couldn't hear me. So essentially what we want to do is set the foundation for our work together this evening and identify what is universal screening. So universal screening is the process of administering a brief standardized assessment to all students and then using the data to identify students who might be at risk of not meeting grade level expectations at the end of the school year. Those who also tells us about those that are meeting grade level expectations and those who demonstrate advanced performance. It gives us a snapshot of the group as a whole and then as each individual student. Universal screening is one component of the MTSS or multi-tiered systems of support. It underlies a strategic approach to identify students who may need additional classroom intervention or extension. So next, yeah, there we go. So as we think about why do we screen students and what's the relevance of that, teachers conduct the screening in reading and mathematics 3 times a year, at the beginning of year, middle of year, and the end of year, to evaluate the students' current skills in both literacy or reading and math, and to get data for planning core instruction and classroom interventions or extensions. Screening gives us information to help prevent reading and math gaps that may affect students in the long term with their long-term educational goals. With current reliable information, teachers can work together in professional learning communities to make instructional decisions that support the academic growth and acceleration of all students. Next slide. So it's important as we're screening students in both literacy and mathematics that they give us information about how a student progresses to beyond grade level. And that's an important note with screeners, is it's not, are they at grade level right now, but it's a predictive, will they be on grade level by the end of the school year? As many of you know, there were also state requirements that influenced our decisions. So back in 1998-99, it was required that we assess students in K2, and that's when we brought DIBELS into our system. As you're familiar more recently with the dyslexia legislation, it identified dyslexia as a specific learning disability, and then in 21-22 school year, we were required to screen all students in kindergarten through 2nd grade for indications of being at risk for not reading or weaknesses associated with dyslexia. It also requires our movement toward implementation of MTSS systems, as well as clear communication with families about their students' literacy development. So prior to beginning the process, and I'm going to hand this off to Jen in a couple of minutes, prior to beginning the process to adopt a screener and progress monitoring tool, the dyslexia legislation that came out in 2018 framed for us the key components in a screener that are necessary to identify when students are at risk for reading difficulty, including dyslexia. So as we embarked on the adoption of a new screening tool, we took into account the legislation in ESSB 6162. Go ahead, Jen.
Thanks. So as Mike said, we looked at this work coming from an MTSS lens. And then we also looked at the legislation and the requirements that we had. And from that, we formed a universal screener adoption committee, and we followed our essential adoption processes. So we had teachers, administrators, specialists on that committee. We engaged in multiple meetings where we really focused in on MTSS and using the universal screener and thinking about how it best fit into our system. One of the other elements of adopting a screener is that OSPI had very specific guidance. Unlike other adoptions where you can kind of look at the larger field to see what's out there and choose a little bit more freely, OSPI had very specific guidance and lists of tools that we could look at. So we took those different pieces and then we used a consensus-focused decision-making process to identify the tools to pilot. We also talked quite a bit about how do we make this be successful on a systemic level. So we looked at not just what does OSPI say, what are the tools that we're looking at, but what will make this be something that's actually creates usable data for teachers and that fits into a sustainable long-term implementation. So one thing that was really important, especially looking at the needs of our elementary teachers and the demands on their time, is having one platform for reading and math, and that it just seemed untenable to say, use this tool for K2, which would have been what DIBELS did, use this tool for 3 through 5 reading, use this tool for math, use a separate tool for middle school. It was really important to us to have one platform that really was a quality platform that helped us as a system have a systemic response to supporting our students. We also wanted it to be adaptive. We wanted something that would tell us something more than a single data point, but be really able to use the testing to dive into more specifically where students were in their skills, and then be able to give us more information for instructional responses. And with that, really looking at measuring student growth, not a MET standard, that's it, but be able to look at over the long term, how do we measure student growth, and then what do we do with that information? And with that would come progress monitoring. And again, thinking about our elementary teachers and our whole system, something that actually was reasonable to administer. And that made us look away from tools that were still pencil and paper, and really look at what's something that can have assessment be part of the easy flow of a school day or a school year so that we can implement it consistently. And meet, of course, the requirements of the dyslexia legislation, and really importantly, provide reliable student data. So with that, with all that background information, we identified the adoption committee, and then we identified pilot schools. We looked at professional learning for the teachers and the principals involved so that we could have a quality process that they would really be able to evaluate how the pilot went based on some deeper learning. We also reflected back to some earlier work that had happened in 2018, 2019, where we'd started initially to look for a math screener and then recognized that it should be an integrated process. Literacy and math should be together. But there had been some research done around that we're able to pull that information in. We used our district rubrics that we use for adoptions to measure the selected tools and really be able to evaluate them as objectively as possible. And then we had teachers pilot both STAR and FastBridge. We looked at the number of tools that made our list based on the requirements that I shared earlier. And we narrowed that down using a consensus process to STAR and FastBridge, and we're able to pilot those two. We were able to reconvene and vote using the consensus process and had actually over 90%. There was one person on our committee of 24 people that had some questions about FastBridge, but really it was a very strong process that ended in a very strong recommendation for moving forward with FastBridge. So briefly, we want to talk about, so that's how we ended up with FastBridge. We want to talk just really briefly about how it's used. So FastBridge on the next slide stands for Formative Assessment System for Teachers. And as Mike was explaining about a screener and Kelly was as well, it provides screening and progress monitoring tools for reading and math and has the capacity for social emotional, but we're just using it for reading and math at this time. We're using them K-8 for all of our students district-wide. They're really deeply grounded in research, and they have a suite of assessments. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But they have a suite of assessments that identify benchmark skills that students have mastered or are developing so that we can really plan instruction specific to student needs. Teachers can use this data to inform instruction, respond with intervention, monitor progress, which supports all students, including those with symptoms of dyslexia. All elementary teachers and middle school ELA and math teachers have engaged in professional learning around FastBridge and have been using it as a universal screener at this point. So some of the assessments that are in the FastBridge suite are the computer adaptive test and then some curriculum-based measures. And where we are right now is really using the computer adaptive tests. And what that means is that a computer adaptive test helps a teacher identify more specifically and deeply where the student is in progress. So a computer adaptive test would be if they're in the assessment, the student answers 3 questions incorrectly, the adaptive tool then makes an easier question to be able to dig deeper into where the student actually is, or opposite, if the student gets them all right, it progresses in difficulty so that we're able to really understand where the student is in terms of their progress in learning. And we could talk more about the specific assessments, but we're scaffolding on the next slide. We're building, this is a fairly significant tool, and we're implementing in a pandemic. And so as we think about implementing in a pandemic, it actually increases the urgency for using it and for using the data. But we're also recognizing that we can go as fast as we can and want to make sure teachers feel competent and confident in using the tool. So in the 2020-21 school year, we really just wanted to make sure all K-5 teachers and then middle school ELA and math teachers really understood the purpose of FastBridge and could administer the test. And we had to have a very flexible environment for that, which actually helped us become really fluent in the administration process and being able to understand how to deliver the test. One of the aspects of being remote is that we really learned to use the student view of the test and the perspective, and really were able to dive into the skills being assessed. We focused with administrators on understanding the information in the reports and then being able to use them. And then in this year, we're diving deeper into administrators and teachers being able to use the reports to inform instructional decisions. Starting last year, but really building into something that we're expanding this year, is having teachers be able to create small skills groups and plan for instruction using the FastBridge data and Wonders for Tier 1. And our continued goal is to think about how we continue to deepen that implementation and begin to look at, into next year, look at data, longitudinal data, student data over time to really build our supports for all students. So the goal of our sustained implementation is going back to what Mike said at the beginning. This is an essential component of MTSS implementation. So our goal is to not have it be a separate FastBridge implementation here, MTSS over there, but really to think about how does this tool strengthen our Tier 1 and our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 instruction. We want to develop teachers and school expertise to do this. And so some of the professional learning that we've designed for our teachers has been in using the PLC structure to use the specific data and deepen their understanding of how to use FastBridge data and have it inform instruction. And then continue to have it be a data point in determining student programming. At no time would we ever say a single data point is what we want to go with, but it's gathering really important data for us that can inform a broader picture and a deeper picture of student learning. And as we understand the tool more and can apply it more, we want to expand progress monitoring capacity for classroom teachers so we can deepen the learning for all students and ensure all students are accessing grade level learning.
And so we want to enter in around a couple of things, what FastBridge does and what FastBridge does not do. So FastBridge does provide us in the data drought that we've been in over the past couple of years, provides us with multiple data points on each student 3 times a year. It gives us benchmark scores that tell us how are our students doing in relation to the end of year goals. It helps us identify students who are at risk for potential poor learning outcomes. And it also provides us with percentile ranks that compare students' results to nationally representative groups. So as we think about how is FastBridge used during, what it doesn't do is provide or replace curriculum tools. It also doesn't give specific diagnosis of student learning issues, but it does give teachers a roadmap on a report that's called Screening to Intervention on where their students' strengths are and challenges are, so it can help focus general ed classroom instruction, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then it doesn't qualify or disqualify students for highly capable or for safety net, because we bring in multiple tools to identify students who are most at risk. So as we think about how is FastBridge used in core instruction, and you've heard this kind of as a theme. It's used to identify students who are at risk for not being at grade level at the end of the year, for students who would benefit from acceleration in their classrooms, as well as reports that can be used to inform both individual instruction and small groups of instruction for students based on like strengths. And so next slide. So as we think about the multilingual learners, the elementary safety net program, and the middle school safety net program, I want to talk to you a little bit about how we're using the potential for what we're doing now and the potential for where we could go in the future. So the multilingual learner program uses FastBridge data to monitor student progress in reading as part of a programmatic team with the safety net teacher, the special education teacher, and the multilingual teacher. The data is used alongside for multilingual students their ELD, or their reading, writing, listening, speaking skills, to help determine the necessary supports for students. We are also being very cautious with our multilingual learners, because being multilingual is a gift, and they're acquiring English as part of their learning within the classroom. And so we want to make sure that we're not representing our multilingual students in safety net at too high of a rate, because oftentimes, especially in K1 and 2, what's being taught during core instruction is what our multilingual learners need the most. So in elementary safety net, we analyze FastBridge universal screening data 3 times a year to identify students who may be at risk for reading difficulties, including those with dyslexia. Safety net teachers administer, after we do the first round of assessing with the screener, we administer additional diagnostic assessments, including some FastBridge measures, to gather more data and assist teachers in determining individual reading skill gaps and match students to the best fit of interventions, which includes effective curriculum tools for each bucket of students who we're continually supporting. Safety net teachers also use FastBridge to progress monitor students in program to measure growth and determine if the intervention plan is a good fit. If the intervention plan needs to be adjusted, they do so. FastBridge progress monitoring measures are administered every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on what we're seeing with student performance during small group instruction, as well as what the overall progress monitoring assessments tell us. The middle school safety net program is using FastBridge to identify students who may need additional support in reading or math, and it also provides them with the similar data sets and opportunities as it does for elementary safety net students. Students are continually provided the Just Right instruction using the Just Right instructional tools. And that progress monitoring piece is going to be pivotal as we continue to adopt and implement FastBridge, able to utilize that as a component of core instruction to help meet the students where they are and grow them and give them access to grade level content.
Good evening, everyone. I want to talk just briefly about Highly Capable and how FastBridge is being used within the program. So first of all, at the state level, they expect us to have a highly capable program. They give the district the autonomy to determine their eligibility process and their programming available, and we do that on a yearly basis. One of the pieces that we are required to do is to universally screen students at least 2 grade levels between K and 8. In the past, prior to moving to remote instruction, we used the COGAT screener at the 1st grade level and SBA at the 4th grade level. So we would universally screen all of our 1st graders and then invite them to move forward if they met the screening criteria. And then at 4th grade with SBA, we looked at students who had met at the level 4, which is the top level for the state assessment in both math and ELA. And then we'd reach out to those families and invite them to apply for additional testing to determine if they were eligible for highly capable services. Obviously, in the last couple of years, we've had a few changes to what is available in regards to data. So SBA was not given last year, so we don't have SBA data. and it was just given this fall, but it was a modified assessment. So we're using it as part of the body of evidence, but it's not a screening tool. In addition to that, we had an eligibility committee within our our department, which we have on a regular basis, just to look at all of our assessments. And that committee included highly capable teachers, highly capable building principals, district administrators. We had program specialists, including people from our equity department, and district administrators, and a couple of school psychologists review several of our cognitive options for assessments for highly capable. And they recommended the change from the COGAT screener / POST, because it's a combination test, and to move to the Naglieri, which is also called the NNAT. The Naglieri is a it has no, it's a nonverbal assessment, which means it takes out that barrier that many of our multilingual students have as they go through the COGAT. COGAT has a lot of interesting questions that bring in some bias, and so that was one of the reasons. Plus, we also had used it in a remote setting, so there was some ongoing struggles with how we move forward with COGAT screener. So this year we moved forward, and we were really excited. I have some data I will share with you in a moment, but we were able to use FastBridge this year for not only the 2 grade levels that we normally do universal screening for in order to move forward in eligibility, but we were able to use it for grades K through 7. So we actually are exceeding the state expectations for universal screening for high cap students, and we did all of our students in grades K through 7. And we set the standards at 85%. We didn't want to decrease the number of students that we were assessing. We actually were wanting to make sure that we had a really big net, that we were trying to catch more students, especially those who are underserved within our current program. FastBridge is nationally normed, which allows us to have a national percentile rank, and that helps us with our eligibility process. That is one of the requirements of any assessment that we're using for state, according to the state for eligibility. And then the other benefit of FastBridge this year for us is that it actually decreases the number of assessments that our students have to sit through while they are working their way through all of the different assessments to determine if they meet the requirements for highly capable. In the past, they would have had to go through the COGAT screener, which was a 60-minute assessment. If they met screening, they'd then have to go on to the POST or potentially the whole additional test. And then they'd go into the Iowa. So we've decreased the number of assessments for students to get into our program by approximately 1 to 3 hours, depending on if they had met the screening criteria. So we're happy to say that we have a little bit less testing happening in our department, and yet we are still definitely meeting the numbers that we expect to see. So here's kind of a quick historical look at our program. So what I went through is the first one is applicants. So in 2008 or 17 is the first year that we were required to do the universal screening. So prior to that, the only students that were assessed for highly capable programming would have been parents that applied in the fall of the school year during our application window. And then from those applicants, you can see how many had qualified. As we moved through, you can see last year we had, which is I put an asterisk there because we did do all of our assessments remote, and there were challenges during that time, and it was an interesting testing event. So we just always want to keep a little track of that. So in 2021, so last year, we had 2,676 applicants, including the ones that were invited due to universal screening. Of those, 1,319 actually qualified for services. The data is always a little tricky because we have families that if they don't meet the thresholds for the program they want to be in, they will come back in the fall and they will apply again to be reassessed to see if they can move into a different level of programming. So in some cases, we have students who go through our process on a yearly basis until their families feel that they are in the program that meets their needs. or that they want them to qualify for. Then this year is kind of a unique year, and you'll see that we currently have 4,253 applicants. And of those 4,253, we are currently testing 3,996. So FastBridge hasn't decreased the number of students that we are assessing and determining eligibility for. We've actually exponentially increased the number of students we are trying to bring into the program and meet their unique learning needs. The next slide will show you this year's data, and this is an internal document that we've worked to try to make it be more public, but I will walk through it with you so that you have a little bit better understanding of what the numbers mean. So where it says applicants, I'm just going to walk through the kindergarten data because I think it's the same across. So for kindergarten, in the fall, we had 539 families reach out and apply to be tested. Of those 539, 308 of those students met the screening criteria. But remember, we also went into what we called outreach. So we have 2,237 students in kindergarten. We looked at all of their student data for FastBridge, for math and for reading, and of those students, 639 actually met our screening criteria. So we reached out to that additional 100 families and said, your student has met the criteria to move forward in testing. Are you interested? And if so, here's how you apply. And we did that for K through 7. So you can see our fall applicants were 3,092. Our total outreach was actually within 100 of being the same number, so 2,915. The next question I'm sure you have in the back of your minds is, okay, of those students that were in outreach, how many actually applied? We had an additional 1,161 students that moved forward in our testing process that we are still going through right now. So our numbers that we are looking at, our opportunity for our students is actually increased considerably. We're also seeing a really interesting early correlation. We are still testing. We have about another 2 weeks of assessments to do. Because of COVID, we're trying to stretch out our window a little bit so that we decrease our exposure opportunities. But we are already beginning to see some early evidence of a really nice correlation between the FastBridge math and reading and the Iowa math and reading. So it's great if we can make that correlation, because it also helps us ensure that the students that we're moving forward in the process are going to be successful in the Iowa, or more apt to be successful in the Iowa, because that is a very lengthy test. It's 2.5 to 3.5 hours depending on the grade level. So that's a long time to sit with those students. So we're excited. We feel like we're making some big changes, but we also feel like they're the right moves.
I'm talking to. Thank you all for your presentation. We wanted to see, our thinking was to pause here, take questions about FastBridge, and then we would turn it over to Matt and Johnny to talk about Panorama, if that makes sense to everybody, or we can hold questions till the very end, however you'd like to go. So am I hearing we'd want to do some questions right now? Okay.
Looks like Mark had his hand up first, then Chris.
2 questions for y'all. You mentioned that if the parents didn't like the outcome of their students' testing, they could retest in the next fall. Are there test prep classes for this sort of testing? My concern would be that the more affluent kids could have a leg up on the fact that their parents could keep having them take this prep test until they aced it.
That's a great question. There are several sites that have test prep for COGAT. And at this point, they do not have test prep for NNAT, and because it is a nonverbal test, it would be much trickier for them to do a ton of test prep on. As for FastBridge in Iowa, they have some study sessions for Iowa, but it would be similar to what you do for like SAT, like just basic exposure to that. So that's why and because FastBridge occurs, and we've done all of our testing with the exception of online school in the classrooms or in the schools during the school day this year. And so we're decreasing some of that additional outside impact.
Okay. The other question I had was, it'd be interesting to see, maybe it's just me not being able to visualize it, some of the sample questions as you walk students through them. I'm sorry. But as you know, the point of, if they answer this, it goes to here. If they answer this, this, and this, and how that shows you what you need to see for this deficiency or this extra effort. You see where I'm going?
I do, and I think that would be a Kelly or a Jen.
Okay.
They would have access to those.
Whoever.
Yes, we can get some samples to you around what the assessment looks like, as well as kind of an example of how it is adaptive. And there's a report within FastBridge that we're able to dial into the specific student and know what their strengths are and what their challenges are, and so I think what would make sense to show you is an S2I report where it really gets granular around the student's needs, and then it gives us reports that provide us with what a teacher could focus on during core as well to meet the needs of the most students.
Okay, great, because this tells me kind of the overall picture of how, but I still don't see the kind of the kid-to-kid method, how it affects them. Thanks.
So my question is more on the lines of, so for FastBridge, it expanded from being just literacy to being literacy and math. And it's also expanded from being K2 to now K5, if I understand correctly, potentially up to K8. I'm just wondering how much additional burden there is on the teacher time for administering these tests. And I understand how the system might get value out of it. I really want to make sure that the teachers appreciate the value that they have in the classroom. That's more important to me, actually, than my ability to understand what's going on in the system. So I think this is really a Jen or a Mike question.
Yeah, and it's one of the nice things about this tool is that it's actually been a really great interdepartment partnership. So Kelly can answer too, or Becky, but really it's for K2, it parallels the kind of testing that we used to do with DIBELS and actually Kelly handles more of this. So it might be just K1 where we actually have to give it one teacher to one student. So it takes about the same time as testing that we used to do. For the upper grade levels, it's about 20 minutes, and it's just the students log onto their computer. The teacher gives just basically says begin, and then it's pretty quick, 20 minutes, 3 times a year. So it's meant to be, that was something we really looked at, was how can this be something that does not have undue burden on the teacher or on testing time or all that, but have it be something that was data we could easily collect that would still be really valuable data.
Right. And so this, now the raw data becomes sort of a preliminary screener for eligibility for the NNET. If I got that straight? Okay. So this is really interesting. Will we be able to collect information on how many kids we're picking up by grade level for dyslexia? I'm very interested in how early we're picking up on kids who need additional support relative to are we picking up on them at all? And is that something we can get out of these testing tools?
Yes, we're able to identify students who are high risk, low risk, some risk, or met the expectation. And so for every student who is high risk or some risk, we're going in and administering additional multiple measures to see the discrete skills that they need additional supports and scaffolds on. And then we have this whole magical flow chart that we use that takes us through what was their score on the test. If they scored a certain area, what is it that what other assessments do we need to administer? And then it says match them with this curriculum resource. So we've got the full package of what it looks like as they qualify for intervention services. it also provides, the FastBridge tool also provides teachers with, for instance, if phonemic awareness pops as an area of need, it will say biggest bang for your buck essentially is to do phonemic awareness activities whole class. So it takes everything from gen ed. Yeah.
Restating what you just said, that this is something where the in-classroom teacher would get the data back from FastBridge that tells them, here are some additional assessments that will help you figure out for this kid where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then potentially whether one needs to call in additional interventions beyond the classroom teacher.
Yeah, and at this point, the additional classroom-based measures, or CBMs is what we call them, are being administered by the safety net teachers, by the interventionists at this point in time, because they're equipped with
that helps. I was worried that every teacher had to suddenly become quite good at that intervention piece.
Not yet.
I think having some specialists is great. So thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Eric, do you want me to call on folks or?
Yeah, if you could, I'm having.
Yeah, I can see. I have the list up. I just want to confirm. So Leah, it looks like you're next.
Thank you. I had two really quick questions. First, thank you for the information because I was kind of lost a little bit on the different assessments and everything. So I really appreciate the overview. One question that kind of popped into my head, and I think you sort of answered it, was if this is a computer-based assessment across the board, is there work being done prior to it being solely computer-based so that it's equitable for all students, because not every student has the same level of computer literacy, especially in the earlier years, whereas you can make the argument that almost every student will have pen and paper the same degree of literacy, right, in taking an old school assessment. Are we doing something to ensure that everybody has kind of the same basic computer level before we start assessing them on their reading and their math?
What's fortunate with FastBridge in kindergarten and first grade is it's administered one-on-one with the teacher. So it's not, K1 is not a computer adaptive assessment. And as they move into second and third and fourth grade, fifth grade through eighth, essentially it is computer generated, and teachers have provide students with scaffolded supports as they're logging onto the system and utilizing in grades 2 through 8.
Okay. And then my other question was looking at the numbers, seeing how much of an increase we're seeing this year with the highly capable eligible students. It's a pretty big jump. And I'm wondering, are we solely attributing that jump to universal screening? So those are students who potentially should have always been in HiCap and we just missed them because they didn't know to apply? Or because I'm guessing we didn't continue to do our prior method of HiCap screening to see whether or not that other bucket is kind of consistent, right? So I guess that's my question.
So I can respond to that. So first of all, we aren't done. So those numbers are just the number of students we are testing, or we are going through the rest of this assessments with. We don't have our final numbers as to how many will be eligible this year through our eligibility process, but we anticipate it will be higher. What we are finding is that we have students that very potentially, our program has a lot of disproportionality in it when we're looking at the demographics of our district. And so we are trying to make sure that we are reaching out to those who don't necessarily know about our program or haven't thought about their student in that way. So that's really what our goal is. We've had a lot of families and a lot of teachers say, oh, we never would have thought of this. And yet they're meeting that initial screening criteria. So we really want to make sure that we are, it's more of an exposure and just an outreach to make sure that our families know that this is a potential opportunity for their students if they meet the threshold criteria that we do have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris?
And so following up on what Leah had just asked, is the in the screening numbers that you showed for the general population rather than the parental advocacy population, there were a meaningful number coming up in every grade, K through 7. And I'm curious if that's because we applied the same test to kids who are already in our highly capable program, or is this only kids who are not already served by highly capable?
These are, great question, Chris, and I actually have the answer that I think you'll like. These are students who are not currently in our program. So we took our applicants out, and then we took our current students that already are in our program in some way, because they already know about our program. They already know how to apply. We're literally targeting the students who are not in program.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Mark.
If this catches more kids that should have been in high cap than before, how prepared are we for an influx of 10, 20, 50% more in high cap? Or does that mean that we then adapt our regular curriculum to be more intensive? I don't know the question or the answer to the question, but I can't imagine us having the staffing capabilities, having 10 more high cap classes in elementary or something, but you tell me, Mike.
Yeah, I'll let Becky respond.
Oh, okay.
I can add a quick statement. I mean to say is, I think Becky shared, we cast the net wide initially, and then we use our other assessments. But what was happening before is we were potentially excluding large numbers or groups of students that, had they had the opportunity to do that second tier of testing, might have qualified. So I don't think we're necessarily seeing the floodgates opening in terms of total numbers, but ideally we're picking up some kids we might have missed through the prior process. And Becky, I don't know if there's anything else to add to that.
Absolutely. And the other thing to think about is, these are all of our students, and we have different levels of programming, obviously. I mean, we have the full-time classrooms, which is what most people think about. But we also have, 1 day per week pull-out quest opportunities at elementary. And then we do have the K5HC single domain programs. And if we look at just our full-time programs, those are students that are going to be in our classrooms regardless. It just may mean that they're now in a different classroom. So that's not going to have a huge impact on our FTE. It's the other programs, and right now we are sitting pretty good. So.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I didn't know if perhaps the increase was only in single digits anyway, as far as percentages go.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see the data when it all finishes up.
Thank you.
You bet.
Siri?
All right. So thank you. Good to learn a little more about FastBridge and how that's working. Recognizing that will also be used for our results policies, and I know DIBELS was a big piece, especially as we look at early learning and reading by 3rd grade and that work. So the piece that I was sort of interested in hearing just a little bit more about is, and it will be around the highly capable at this point, but in the long run, I think it will play out, is the demographics and how that plays out in the long run. We had done universal screening with the COGAT, and we did not see the shift we might have hoped for with that universal screening in grade 1, and hopeful that this will potentially create a different breakout. So that would be a piece of the evaluation I'd be intrigued by to see where that lands. In regards to the dyslexia and reading by grade 3, and I remember having multiple conversations over time on this, is how do we get to 100%? How do we truly succeed? And so as you see this FastBridge coming through, and the work with dyslexia, knowing that that's one of the largest areas of a reading disability, how will this play out in the long run in being able to see that change? And when would we expect to see those shifts in numbers in doing so? Recognizing we are also in a pandemic, and that has not ended at the same time. So.
Yeah, Kelly, do you want to speak specifically to some of the things that FastBridge is telling us about how to target interventions? And then I'd just add real quickly before you do, also remember, I think as we've shared, we've expanded all the way up into secondary, and we heard through our dyslexia work that you have to intervene wherever a kid is, regardless of the grade level. And we didn't have that information before to target those interventions, particularly for our older students. And so that was one of the reasons to use a K8 is, regardless of where they are in the system, we could provide interventions. And then they look, as you remember, a little different depending on what grade you're in. So it's secondary, your approach to dyslexia, while there'll be some things that are very are similar, there's also some unique things you do in secondary that you might not do for a kindergarten, for example. But Kelly, you've been sharing with me a lot of the work about just how you're able to really specifically target the very specific concrete skills a kid will need to actually learn to read effectively.
And I think that FastBridge screens and helps us to do that. And over the past, I would say 3 to 5 years, we've really had the opportunity to, there are a couple of approaches we're taking. We're taking the approach of data protocols and looking at data on each student in a school at 3 different times a year. We also know that one of the most important things we can do is shore up core instruction. And last year we had the opportunity to do a budget add through a process to provide foundational literacy training for all K-2 teachers. And so it's really to teach teachers about phonics, phonemic awareness, fluency, vocab, and comprehension, and how that intersectionality happens during core instruction. I think that and I hope isn't a good word to use, but I'm very hopeful that the strategies that we're using now with the very discrete assessment measures for K1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that we're able to really figure out what is it that the students need to know and be able to do to be proficient readers. The other thing we know that with students who are at risk for reading difficulty, including dyslexia, is the importance of phonemic awareness and being able to hear the sounds in words. And given that, we delivered a gift to all K-2 teachers this year of Haggerty's phonemic awareness routine, which our safety net teachers partnered with core instructors so that the vision is in every K2, K1 classroom for now, that kids are hearing and interacting with the sounds they hear, which helps build that foundational piece to prevent reading difficulty. So it's a multi-pronged approach to get at, and I wish I could tell you in 2 years we'll have every kid reading at grade level. I think I can't be that predictive, and based on what we know now, but I think we should see an acceleration of students, an accelerant with students who are at risk for reading difficulty and approaching grade level standard.
So just how will this interact with 504 special education services? What's the interplay in the relationship that occurs?
Yeah, and I think I'll let you take that one, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's kind of dovetailing with something else I wanted to say in kind of summary is that I think there have been a few questions asked about this. This tool really can be used at the individual student level, can be used at the classroom level when you're thinking about groupings. It can be used at the school level when you're thinking about supports your teachers might need in grade level teams or in a school. It can be used at a district level, like Kelly was talking about, providing support for all K1 teachers. So ideally, we are starting to also think about students' IEPs, individual education programs, and what might be connected to literacy or math, and then using this as part of that process. Ideally, we start to use it more, and as you know, there are a number of other assessment tools depending on a student's unique disability, but it is one of many tools that can be used, and we want to see it used more because we want all of our kids to be successful academically in school. We know literacy is absolutely foundational to all content areas, and then math really is a gateway. Depending on where you start, you can be limited based on whether or not you have access and success in math classes as you start taking more advanced math. So it definitely can be connected to special education. It can be connected to 504 plans. It can be connected to plans for multilingual learners or students who need more literacy instruction as part of Safety Net. It touches all different aspects of our system, and that's why having these tools in place really is so important. Looks like Eric and then Mark.
I was looking back at the slide where we had some of the outreach data, slide 21, at least in the PDF I have. So there were, in kindergarten, for example, 539 applicants, and then we did outreach to 2,237 students. Is that not all of our effectively? I mean, is that all of our did we outreach to every kindergartner?
No, we did. We screened every kindergartner.
Okay.
and we did outreach. 639 of them met our screening criteria. And then when we took the applicants out, we had 100 left in outreach that had not applied, that we then invited to apply for additional assessments.
Got it. So every
So-
kindergartner was screened, and every kindergartner who met the screening criteria, their family was told, whether they applied or not, was told, hey,
Correct.
you can apply. Great.
Yep.
And is that true? That's true for every grade?
K7.
Okay. That's what I thought. I wanted
Yep.
to make sure I had that. That's
Nope. That, like I said, it's a kind of a tricky graph. It's a tricky chart.
okay, good. All right. Thank you. You made me feel better. And that's excellent. That's the answer I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
To both parts of that. Also, they're tricky. Thanks.
Mark?
Yeah, for those, once we've, these kids have been identified as dyslexic, are we prepared with a full Orton Gillingham curriculum to address their needs? And for that matter, too, if there's always a chance of missing someone, to be quite frank, no matter how good your tests are, it never fails. There's usually at least one or two kids that for some reason or another just doesn't get detected. And I'm wondering if it wouldn't be more effective if we, since Orton Gillingham is supposed to raise the reading level of all kids, if we just went to that system, period, and used the Orton Gillingham, not just a piece of it here or there, but the entire system for all of our kids for their reading ability. One, it would catch any kid that was had the dyslexia, but two, it would if I'm told from the experts, it raises everybody's level. Well, everybody benefits then.
So I can speak briefly, and then Kelly maybe a little more detailed. So there's Orton Gillingham curriculum. There's an Orton Gillingham approach, but that is not a comprehensive literacy curriculum, nor is it a comprehensive literacy instructional program. And so you look for elements of that, but there are many other foundational components that are part of our reading curriculum that are also embedded in the assessment. So the assessment actually calls out the core components of reading and then lets you target those that a student needs the most help in. And so really you're looking at a whole literacy program that includes assessment, instruction. Kelly was talking about the training being provided to teachers of how do you work with an individual student? How do you work with a group? What intervention do you use when you don't see a certain growth in an area? So that's much more than Orton Gillingham, which is, there's value there. And Kelly, I think, can speak a little bit more to maybe how that is integrated as part of a larger comprehensive literacy program.
And I think as we think about serving students where they are, that there's multiple tiers of support. And so if we think about, like when I shared that we didn't want multilingual students tracked into safety net groups, we want to ensure kids have the capacity and the opportunity to learn at an extended grade level curriculum and teaching pedagogy. The programs we use include multimodalities. They include phonemic awareness, so they include components of the tools necessary to prevent or mitigate reading difficulty, including dyslexia. So, and I think that if we think about tier 1 is class instruction, and we want 80% of students to be proficient with classroom instruction, then we think about that other 10 to 15% who get an intervention through safety net or special education in that tier 3, where I know Dr. Hitch is working with her team on a program that takes that a more intensive approach for students who are not successful in core, who we've done an intervention in tier 2, and that they need something in addition to. So building out that full system of multi-tiers of support is important to do for the success of all of our students.
So I think the big idea too is, Orton Gillingham, or even the approach, that any curriculum or any resource is one part of a much larger literacy approach for students. But
Okay.
definitely, I think one of the foundational principles built into Orton Gillingham is that multimodality, and that is built into a lot of the approaches that we're using as a system.
Okay, thanks.
Chris?
Yeah, I apologize because I'm going to have Can we go back to slide 21 one more time, your universal screening results? Because I want to understand the numbers, and there's still something that I think there are two different things that are both described as MET screening. So my understanding let's just talk about kindergartners.
Yep.
There were 2,237 kids who were screened. Of those 2,237, 639 of them met the screening criteria. And in that row, I interpret screening to mean the FastBridge.
Yes, all of this is FastBridge.
Okay. Now, in the top row, then, we have 539 applicants, of whom 308 meant screening. So these are parents who are advocating for their kids to get into the program, 308 of whom passed the FastBridge screen.
Correct.
Which actually means that those 639 is not that you've got 100 additional students. It should be 639 minus 308, not minus 539. A bunch of the parents who advocated for their kids to get in had kids who didn't qualify on our screening assessment.
That is correct. You need
So,
to remember,
okay.
though, that of those, when you look at the outreach, not
Yep.
all of those actually apply. So they
Right.
don't keep moving on through.
Yeah, so that's what I was starting to wonder about, is that this is something where the numbers don't perfectly add up because we're looking at slightly different sets of numbers.
Correct.
The long story being that out of 639, we got 408. Is that an accurate
Yes.
interpretation? Okay.
Mhm.
So this is definitely something where I think we can clean up how this is presented, just as a tiers of, or even
Sure.
just tracks. Here's the parents who applied versus the kids who we found,
Sure.
and how many of them came through. Now, but when we talk about the 639, they met the FastBridge. That doesn't mean that they met the NNAT standard,
Yeah,
and
they
therefore
don't
they're not
have-
yet in.
They don't have to meet.
Okay.
So universal screening, according to the state, is the first move, like the first
Right.
Screening. And then if they make it through the screening, then they take the NNAT and the Iowa, both.
So the
And
NNAT and the
all
Iowa,
of-
this is,
Go ahead.
is that something they have to accept the invitation, or we screen them?
No, we have to actually get a permission to assess from each of the
Okay.
families to move them forward past the FastBridge.
I would very much like to get data back on the kids who are qualified on FastBridge, but
Mhm.
don't pursue any further testing. What do their demographics look like?
Absolutely. We will be doing all of that once we get it all
Very helpful. And
finished.
split them out as their own category. Thank you very much.
Sure. You bet. Thank you.
One of the things we could do is schedule a follow-up study session in the spring and gather board questions prior to the study session so that Becky can come prepared to respond to those specific data questions. And if there's data questions around safety net, multilingual, or others, we could just invite the entire team back.
Yeah. So the very specific version of that question is 308 where parents advocated for them, 100 who came when we told them they were qualified. I'd like to know about the 639 minus 408. What was the demographics of those kids? Thank you very much.
All right. Well, it looks like there aren't questions, and we did went a little bit over our planned time. I know Panorama is coming up, but Eric, I don't know if in the past we've taken a little break after an hour. I don't know if you want to.
Are you okay charging on so that we can get through? Otherwise, I don't know that we'll actually get through Panorama. At this point, we're not going to get the second item on our agenda tonight, but let's just try to get through the Panorama discussion.
Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Matt Gillingham and Johnny Fu then.
Great. Thank you. And Panorama is a data that the board is familiar with through a variety of monitoring reports. We most recently talked about it when we were talking about results 3, in which we use a lot of Panorama data. So today I've invited Johnny Fu, who's our Director of Student Services. He'll be taking us, one of the things that we haven't spent a lot of time is really trying to understand how is Panorama structured. And then as we're thinking about, particularly in relation to conversations we have around monitoring, Panorama's data can be a little bit unique in the sense that of how they ask their questions and how they're normed. And so we thought it'd be good to really just kind of go into some of the mechanics. We'll start very broadly, and then I've asked Johnny to kind of go take us through one data set, narrow us down. So it's not a dive so much into our data as just understanding the systems. And a little bit similar to FastBridge, this is we started using Panorama out of a desire for having program information. So we began using Panorama years ago when we were undergoing a program review of our elementary counseling program. And what we found was that the constraints on time, couple of classroom time and counselor time and energy, we really needed a tool that would allow us to be able to look at what are the needs that our students are sharing with us, so that we can identify the right types of programming and the right types of interventions for our counseling program. So it started at the elementary level, and then we've incorporated it into our secondary counseling programs. And then as a result of that, we had these data sets that as we were updating our board policies into a coherent governance model, we're able to look at this and lean on this at a broader system level. So Johnny's going to take us through kind of that from the 20,000 foot on down. And so Johnny, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Matt. And some additional context with that is, with the pandemic, it allowed us an opportunity to ask our students, hey, what is your current experience right now? How are you seeing yourselves in terms of your own social emotional competence? We know that the pandemic has been particularly hard for our youth, and especially on their mental health. And so it gave us an opportunity to ask questions around topic areas like challenging feelings or emotion regulations. And like Matt said, some of these are already board reported. And so we were able to do it systematically during the pandemic and continue to do so this year. With a Panorama survey, we ask twice a year, one in the fall and one in the spring. Historically and traditionally, when you see the Panorama survey is when it's administered at the beginning of the year, the scores are somewhat lower than what you will anticipate in the spring. And a part of that is just context around supportive relationships, depending on the topic questions that we ask our students. I just want to just kind of reiterate what you just heard about FastBridge. And I just want to say, along the lines of the purpose of MTSS is really whole child all day, every day. And I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but when we think about the whole child, we are thinking about their social emotional well-being in terms of academic progress as well. These two things are interrelated and interconnected with one another. So what we see is when students' social emotional competence begin to decrease, we can also correlate it with a student's academic progress or attendance or academic engagement or even school engagement. And then it also gives us an opportunity to ask the question about school climate and culture, right? And so when we think about FastBridge and Panorama, I think it's important to see it as a holistic approach to seeing how our students are participating in their education and what might they be saying about their educational experience. Just broadly, sort of our agenda tonight is I'll give you guys an overview of Panorama. I know that we spoke about it at the last board study a little bit, but I'm going to give you a little bit of more of an overview of what is Panorama and where they're coming from, and then how to review, like Matt said, how to review the student survey by district level, topic level, and question level. I'll give you sort of a broad scope of a subset of our fall data. I just want to also let you guys know that early February, we will release an insight report that Panorama does for us around our fall survey, and that will be released to the public and published on our website. So a little bit about Panorama is they're really focused on student outcomes, and they do it in multiple ways. They do it through the social emotional learning, student success and feedbacks. They have different types of surveys that they help support schools, districts think about, or just schools. We're particularly interested in the social emotional survey here in Lake Washington. We haven't looked into other data data surveys that they offer, we've really focused on social emotional well-being and school climate and culture on the student level. They offer a variety of surveys, and they do a lot of partnering with experts in the field. This is not a company that just kind of goes off on a whim and decides to create surveys. They really are intentional about the experts that they engage with, the community they engage with, and the students and school communities that they engage with prior to releasing any surveys. And I'll get into that here a little bit. So when we think about their survey validity, they go through an extensive process of a rigorous design and Survey 2.0 guidelines. And it's really a 6-step process in developing their survey. So it's not to, hey, we want to know what our students' mental health well-being is, and so we're just going to ask a bunch of questions and see what they say. They're really intentional about digging into the research around what that particular topic that they're interested in understanding from students. They go out and interview and have focus groups. They're very intentional from hearing what would the experience, what are students or families or staff saying, so that it informs not only their research, but it informs the way that they ask questions. Then they synthesize the indicators. They really begin to narrow down to make sure that the language that they are using makes sense to all types of learners. They create the items, right, the survey items, and then here's the other pieces. This is where they bring in experts in the field. They don't just choose one expert. They choose multiple experts in the field to be able to guide their thinking in administration. And then they test it out and interview before even releasing the survey to the general public. When I say general public, is Panorama is one of the only companies out there that has an open source for their survey questions. It is completely free to any school district or any school that wants to take the survey. What's unique about this pre-testing and interviewing is it's a large set of data. We're talking tens of thousands of data. And I believe they have a pretty large threshold in terms of what that data threshold is. I believe it's about 25,000 students before they will move forward with actually releasing, saying that it's reliable and valid. So they do extensive testing, and they go through these 6 steps before releasing anything. I'm going to transition and get into the district level overview of the questions we ask. Matt mentioned a little bit earlier that we talk about social emotional learning and well-being. That's one subset of surveys that we ask students. And then we also ask students around what is their experience at school, and what types of support do they see accessing at school. So it's twofold. It is the individual perception of their social emotional competence and well-being, and then what is the school experience that they are having and the supports that they have available to them. So when we look at the district level scores, I want to be really clear that when you look at the district score, we should be comparing ourselves nationally. And so you will see below sort of where we might rank. And the reason why it's important to look at the national comparison is because you might see a score of potentially 46% of our students district-wide have a favorability of, it could be challenging feelings. But that 46% of students who say that had a favorable, and we'll get into favorable, or we'll get into a little bit more about what that means, we might actually be at this 80 percentile nationally. And so what I want the board to understand is that the percentage that our students respond should be compared nationally and not just the percentage, because the national comparison allows us to think about it more broadly versus narrowly from a community or district level. And so when we think about district level overview, you will frequently hear me say, this is where we fit nationally. Even though we might be 50% of our students responded a certain way, we're actually in the 80 to 99th percentile. And that's a very important distinction as we go through this data. So here's just one this is an overview of our fall survey data. This is sort of the 20,000 foot level around social emotional competency and well-being. So when you look at these scores, yes, it's relatively high. And I'll just kind of go to challenging feelings for a second, because it's 64%. Now you might think like, wow, 64% is relatively low in terms of what we want to see. But if you move across to the national comparison, you see that we're in the 80 to 99th percentile, meaning that our students are being able to manage their challenging feelings much more successfully than compared to their peers nationally, which is hundreds of thousands of students, not if millions of students who have taken this survey elsewhere. And so if we go to supportive relationship, we're relatively high in the percentile. Leah, I see that your hand's up. I'll pause.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to clarify because I'm not quite sure I'm understanding what you're saying. So our students took the survey and then they're scoring based off their answers. They're scoring within the 80th to 99th percentile in terms of being able to identify and handle their challenging feelings, but they only 64% perceive that they are able to. Is that what you're saying? Like when they are asked themselves whether or not they can do this, only 64% are saying they can.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
And there's multiple questions that get us to 64%. And so challenging feelings is a topic level question or topic level survey, and then there are multiple questions within it. So the average or the cumulative score is 64%. And so we would have to look further in the topic level questions to be able to sort of derive which part of the challenging feeling topics that students, like for instance, in the challenging feelings, how often do you feel like you can manage, I can't remember the exact word, how often can you manage when you are sad or upset? And students will either, I can do it often, somewhat often, sometimes not at all, or never. And so they get to choose what their perception of their competent is. And then holistically what happens is that gets scored. And that's what we see is for challenging feelings is all those questions get scored at sort of like cumulatively. It's like, oh, 64%. Where does that fit on the national scale? So to get to your question, Leah, we would have to click into challenging feelings and look at particular question level.
And I'll add on that, and I think that challenging feelings is a really good example where, 64% of our students here in grades 3 to 5, the aggregate kind of score for that section is favorable. And Panorama only takes the 2 most favorable responses to include it in favorable, and so there's a neutral option that's in their question sets that does not get reported as favorable. So the student reporting that sometimes I have the skills and sometimes I can do it and sometimes I can't would not be scored in that. And then by being able to reference this nationally, we obviously would like to improve the percent favorability rating, but we also that allows us to get a sense of how students across the nation are responding to those, where you can see supportive relationships is the most favorable rating we have, and yet comparatively nationally, that's actually lower than challenging feelings. So it allows us to get a sense of the relationship and understanding the numbers by using the national figures as well.
Thank you.
Oh, and I forgot that I had added that. When we talk about the topic level, so that was the 20,000 foot level. When we think about sort of the district data holistically, we want to look at national comparison. But when we dive into the topic level overview a little bit, it's really important that we begin to sort of look change over time. Do we notice change over time? And how does that change over time look? And so that's where you will see the arrows, the green arrows or the red arrows. And again, I just want to reiterate, depending on the topic level, we will see different results based on when we survey. When we survey in the fall and we ask students about supportive relationship, and we ask in October or November, they're still developing relationships with the adults and students and staff on site. So the score might be lower because those relationships haven't been established yet. But when we ask in the spring, those scores oftentimes are higher, or gives us a more realistic picture holistically of the year around how they perceive relationships or engage in relationships. And so at the topic level, this allows us to just see longitudinally. And so I'm going to tap in a little bit to supportive relationships. Again, this is just the broad category, is from spring to fall. Out of the 6,384 students that were surveyed, we didn't see a whole lot of difference. And how Panorama tells us if there's a significant difference is 3 or more points that you see up or down. And this year, when we see spring to fall, we see 1. So in some ways, it's not statistically significant. It's almost stagnant. And there's more for us to dig into there with our schools and our counselors and our teachers around why that might be stagnant, or what might be our students' experience and perception of supportive relationships. And at the question level, I'll get into a little bit more around what some of our students' answers are. But from a topic level, we want to look at longitudinal data to compare if we're making progress in particular topic areas. Moving into question level, and we're going to just stick with the theme of supportive relationship. This is what Matt was describing, favorability. And so Panorama takes the 2 answers that are favorable, and that's how they develop their score. There's always that neutral that doesn't get added, and then there's 2 that are non-favorable. And it depends on how the question is asked, which makes you, to Matt's point, is we look at the data, we have to pause and think about what does favorability really mean. And so it gives schools an opportunity to pause and really dig into the data and ask themselves, what are our students' perception, and how might we improve our students' perceptions and beliefs about their relationships or their competence or our school climate culture. So continuing with the theme of supportive relationship, when we look at the question level, there are 3 questions. And these questions are really around, for elementary, is there someone in your life that you can count on, right? And typically there's adult, right? It's a teacher or staff member, it's a family member, and a student, another peer. And so these 3 questions are really asking, can you count on somebody? And if we tap into the last question about, do you have a friend from school? This is the biggest difference for our students. And if you can remember, right, we hybrid schedule in the spring, and now we're fully in person this year. And just the opportunity to connect with other peers and feel like they actually have a community is most likely why we see 6 points. That's significant. Again, anything above 3 points is significant. When we look at the first question, do you have a teacher or another adult in school you can count on to help you no matter what? That's down 2, right? And a part of that is taking the context of fall is, hey, you're just establishing a new relationship with your teacher. You don't really know what that means, or you're in a new school. And so there's context to that. But this allows the school to look at these numbers and say, okay, let's think about what are the social opportunities that we're offering to our students. Let's think about the teacher interactions that we're having with our students. Are we being intentional about connecting with our students? How do we know that our students feel like we care about them, that they matter to us? And what are the opportunities that we're helping them to belong? I'm looking at time, and I know I'm a little bit over. And again, I want to show this slide because I really believe as a district, we're really making an effort with Director Kelly and Jen and Rebecca around how do we make sure that we're providing a holistic learning experience for our students? How do we ensure that we understand their beliefs around their competence? And then also how does their academic progress allows us to holistically see them progress towards graduation and that citizenship that we hope. I know that we're changing our R3 measures and moving towards SEL benchmarks and indicators, and I am really excited about that, and I believe that's the right step. And it's going to help us work side by side with FastBridge and some of the other assessments to really round out how our students experience their educational opportunity and what their perceptions are, allows us to tap into that student voice and say, hey, how could we make your education experience a well-rounded experience that you feel value, that you have a sense of belonging?
All right, thank you, Johnny. I don't know if there are any questions from the board or if we want to be able to get to the final agenda item for the study session. Director Bluesner.
So thank you. I mean, this seems like a very rich data set with a lot of possibilities to really look at perceptions around it. I'm assuming this is also, you have access to it broken out by demographics, by grade, by school, by all the above.
Correct.
Yeah, so we have, and as Johnny's been pulling up some of the data sets, I'm actually in the platform and been looking at them. One, because I was really curious about that one that we were asking, because I wanted to know that neutral favorability on that particular item. But yeah, the data, so we break down by student gifted status, language status, special education status, gender, grade level, and by race. And so we are able to look at, and again, what we're looking at is at school level, a district level, or program level, can look to see how students' responses, how their experiences may be informed by those certain aspects of their identity, and can also, and I also wanted to make sure, I mean, when we talk about this is, it tells us what the students perceive as their experience and where they're at, but it is not intended to be used as an evaluative tool of the student's skills, right? This is really more of an evaluation for us as the adults of what are we doing or what do our students need. And so it's not used to essentially assess individual students' skills.
So in looking at that, I think of OE 14, the one that we just recently passed, the anti-racism, equity, inclusion, discrimination policy, as well as the student learning environment. I sort of see as big key ones as to where this could play out and to where that information is. One of the challenges I've always had as we look at these is we often get piecemeal pieces from these data sets, and it doesn't give the overall context and picture. So I don't know if there's ever been any discussion as to how do you provide that bigger piece, even as we push through with those policy components.
And I think that's a part of where, starting last year, we wanted to make sure we published the results. We call it the insight reports that gets published to the district webpage that Panorama does. We don't do it. They publish the insight report saying, Lake Washington, this is where you're at. This is where you're at in terms of some of the particular topic. We actually have a cultural awareness topic level at the secondary level that you could break down some of those demographics and how some of our students who identify a certain way are responding. And so Panorama's insight report, and I haven't seen it yet. I'm really excited to see it and waiting for them to release it to us. Allows us an opportunity to kind of dig in a little bit further, and more than happy to share that with the board prior to releasing that to the public.
And so the plan is that would then be posted upon the website, though, for the community as well to be able to dig into it, sort of like the Healthy Youth Survey and that work.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's available currently on our programs and services under the student services page. There's a webpage called the Panorama Education Survey. Last year's results, that was the first time we asked them to do a report, and part of that is we wanted an independent group to be doing that analysis for us. And so we're committed to posting results, and that's just now becoming part of our practice, where every time we commission the survey, they'll do an analysis for us, and then they'll generate a report, which will help us get a holistic view of how all of these questions are coming together.
That's fabulous. And encourage that all the much more. It'd be great if we could, and maybe it did, and I missed it. If we can email just telling us it's happening, that'd be fabulous. Or even if there were things to highlight through it, but I easily could have missed it as it came through as well. So.
Will do.
Thank you.
I just wanted to second what Director Blazner just asked about. The presentation so far has been what and how, but not much about what is it telling us. And it would be nice on the panorama level. I know we're going to get bits and pieces of it drawn into each report, but I'd also like to be able to see something at some point that's a holistic, here's what panorama told us overall. So I'm seconding what Siri said.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask, the participation in these surveys is voluntary, correct?
Correct. We so that's a part of our administrating protocol. Is about a month before we release sort of the dates around when we would administer, we beforehand send out proctoring notes to our teachers and our counselors, as well as sending community messages out around, we will be taking the panorama survey, and it's completely optional. As students sit in front of the computer as they are about to log in, the teacher let them know that this is completely optional. If at any point you don't want to answer a question, or you want to be done or not do the survey at all, you can do so. And one of the things that we notice is from, we have the SEL competence, and then we have the school support and environment. Those numbers exactly don't match. And it's because some students elected to do one survey and not necessarily the other survey.
But
the
surveys are administered during class time, so it isn't a case of it's whoever bothered to log in at home and do this extra work, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So everyone's kind of given the same opportunity, but then it's up to them whether or not they would like to participate.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And parents, if want to, are allowed to see the survey questions prior to their child taking it. And we've had some questions about that, and parents have had access to those questions prior.
John, does that cause a little bit of self-selection? I mean, do we have any concerns over the ones who are really in need of help, not choosing to take the test because they don't want to know what they already know intuitively? I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm curious.
No, what we have really seen is a high participation rate. Actually, we've seen very high numbers of participation rates because Panorama's ability to when we work with Panorama, they're very clear about if you ask more than 25 questions, your response accuracy begins to go down, and the student response actually goes down. So we work really closely with them to craft the right amount of survey questions. And the other piece is Panorama offers the survey in 20 separate different language that a student can choose from. And they have translated it in a way that allows students to access it in their home language as they take it. And that has been helpful. Our counselors have done an amazing job at the elementary level and secondary level to help push in support if need be. And so in terms of Panorama, I see a high participation rate just because of how it's structured, how it's been developed by Panorama, and the supports around it.
What are the participation rates?
In the elementary, just offhand, we get about a 90% response rate, 90 plus. In the middle school, and I see Matt looking at it.
So we can. Oh, Johnny, I lost. Did everybody else lose audio for Johnny, or?
Can you guys hear me?
No.
You guys can hear me? In the middle school, we see about an 80% response rate. In high school, we're close to 70. And when you think about that response rate, it's a really good response rates in terms of surveying across the board. It's very high in any survey metrics.
It just seems that the drop off might indicate the kids that are starting to realize they've got problems are not going to want to see it on paper, if you will. I don't know. Just a thought.
Yeah, and Mark, I'll make sure and I'll write a note to share the questions with you. And in a way, it's perceived, on the SEL part, it's like perceived competence, perceived sort of,
Okay.
emotional support. And
Okay.
so in my experience, what I've noticed is students are actually more willing to be honest about it. I think there's timing pieces to it, right? Is everyone doing it the same class period, homeroom? Like it's more around when do we implement the survey and the timing of it and the proctoring of it at the secondary level.
Okay. No, just a concern. I
appreciate that.
I'm thinking of a few folks that when I went to high school with that probably would have dropped out by middle school on the testing.
Yeah.
I just have a quick follow-up if I can. First off, thank you for putting that link in the chat. That's fabulous to be able to see where that is. It would be nice actually to even just for knowing what our demographics are in our district and understanding, well, what percentage, so that's a way to look through who's a non-respondent by subgroup might be a beneficial piece to look at. And I don't see it in here at this point, and I'm sure you already have it.
Yeah, actually on response rates, so the way the tool, the platform works is we're able to look up in response rates by school. And so Johnny kind of was giving some general, so I just, Eastlake High School for their fall, they had a 70% response rate which for high school actually is really high. That's higher than our, if I remember right, our last Healthy Youth Survey response rate. But we don't get a demographic breakdown so much for the response rate. So we get when we dive into the individual items and that we get some response, we can get demographics there. So there are some limitations to the tool. We'd have the ability to dig into that. We just have to do our own data analysis and actually withdraw the data and do our own work on that.
Okay, I'm just curious, in the appendix of it, it has a demographic breakdown that's provided for the students, and it breaks it into all the different groups of race, ethnicity. Where did you do things? Are you in the gifted program? Is that based on our student population or based on who responded?
Who responded based on that identified classification.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Both excellent presentations. We're at 6:45. We have another agenda item to start going over the director districts. John, correct me if I'm wrong, we do not need to approve those new director district boundaries until, let's call it November of this year?
Correct. We do have plenty of time to go through that. Barbara has a slide deck with a good set of information for the board to consider. So I would advise postponing that. 14 minutes definitely won't be enough time.
I think that's a better approach rather than spending 10 minutes on it now and then let's just do it all at once. So we'll find upcoming study session to add this back in. Okay, so 6:46, our board meeting starts at 7. We will now adjourn this study session and see everyone back on, there's a new link for the board meeting at 7, a different link. And did we make sure that Leah had the, okay, good. Excellent. Okay, all right, see everyone in about 13 minutes.